Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome in, listener, to another episode of the podcast. I'm excited to be here with you again this week. I'm actually really excited because today I've given myself permission to talk about some of one of the things, only one of the many things that I like to nerd out about in my coaching practice, which is internal family systems. Sometimes it's called parts work, and you'll get to hear all about why that is. And my confession for you is totally related to parts work and to internal family systems, which is, a more global confession about what it is to work with me and kind of how I bring myself to coaching. So, one of the things that you might learn if you decide to work with me is how many different modalities I bring to bear in my practice. And internal family systems is a huge example of that. And the other confession piece of this, so confession number one is working with me means that you get to like dip your toe in the water of so many different techniques. You're going to learn mindfulness stuff. You're going to learn about the Enneagram. You're going to learn internal family systems. You're going to even have some vibes of talk therapy, even though I'm not a therapist, right? All of these little things, like some of the stuff that's in my actual coaching curriculum that you get when you work with me is stuff that I adapted from when I was a childbirth educator. And I've used the same techniques and skills that I learned to help parents prepare for birth. I use now to help parents managing anxiety and big emotions around any parenting situation, right? So my first confession to you is that I'm kind of a little bit of a jack of all trades, and you could definitely say master of none, although I have so many letters after my name at this point. It's like alphabet soup. So I'm never not pursuing a new certification or a new practitioner skill or something like that. It's just part of who I am. I love, discovering some new thing, experiencing something profound from it, and then being like, oh my gosh, everyone has to know. I got to get into this and then totally nerd out about it. And so that's like kind of like confession number two for you, is that whatever I'm teaching you or whatever you're experiencing from me, it is because I have used this tool myself and it has been really impactful. So working with me is almost like a little window into my own personal life, even if I never tell you, any of a thing about my personal life, just knowing that I only bring practices to bear in my business after they have been sort of tested and proven by my own personal experience. So when you work with me, you are getting this like patchwork of awesome techniques that I myself stand by in extremely deep, emotional, almost spiritual ways sometimes. And internal family systems is totally like that. And I love recording these little episodes. Like you'll see if you go back and look at like the episode list so far, which by the way, we passed the 1 year mark a couple weeks ago. I've officially been doing this podcast for over a year now. So if you go back and look at all those, whatever, 52 or more episodes, you'll see sprinkled in there a couple of episodes where I've kind of just been like, here's a coaching tool that I use, or here's this like really neat, psychological principle or something that you should know about. I don't do it all the time, but I think it's really helpful to get these little moments from me for so many reasons. I mean, first of all, what I'm about to tell you, like I said, just like all those other things, has been profoundly impactful for me and for my clients. So obviously it's worth listening to and learning about. But also I think it's important on the level of like just understanding what it's like to work with me, at least as a coach. Not every coach is going to be the same, but how you get to explore and discover these techniques and practices. It's a big deal. But most of the people who hire me after listening to this podcast, they have a very strong idea of what they're going to get because I bring it to you in the podcast almost the same as what I bring to you in our coaching sessions. So let's talk about internal family systems. Now, obviously, you can just Google around and learn what internal family systems is. But today I'm going to try to apply it specifically to, parenting situations and just the experience of being a parent, right? So internal family systems is based on the concept that that throughout our childhood, especially, but it could happen also later in childhood, that throughout our childhood, we as children have experienced moments that were just above our pay grade. They were intolerable to us for whatever reason. Maybe they were just too confusing or too painful or too intense. And I'm sure you've heard me talk about this in the past, and I want to remind you again here. That does not mean necessarily that it's because of some failure or shortcoming on the part of the grown-ups around us. It is the natural outcome of children living in this real world. There are things in the world that are too confusing for us to make sense of. There are things in the world that are just above our pay grade for whatever reason. And so we will absolutely, and your children will absolutely be in situations like that, regardless of how well our parents are parenting or how well we are parenting our children. It's just the way the world works. So, internal family system says that, when we are in these experiences that are intolerable to us for whatever reason, the way that our brain sort of takes care of us is literally what it does is it forms an ego. Um, Internal family systems, instead of talking about our ego as one sort of homogenous blob of our psyche, instead of saying, oh, your ego, instead, internal family system says your ego is made up of discrete parts that each of which were formed through an experience that was above your pay grade. Your brain, your psyche formed this part to protect itself from ever going through an experience that was like that again, from ever experiencing something that was so intolerable and so, painful. And so, we could think of a million examples, right? But like what happens is when we go through those experiences and we create that part now is within us forever. And it becomes um a piece of our ego. It becomes a piece of our strategy system that we use to cope with the world around us. And when you start to learn more and more and more about these protector parts, um, you start to see very easily that all of our protector parts have very childish strategies because they mostly were formed when we were like 2 to 5 years old. So, for example, most of us have one protector part, at least, that says, the way to be safe in this world is to make sure that the people around you are never angry with you, right? The people pleaser part. And lots of us have the people pleaser part. In fact, I haven't really met anybody who doesn't have this part. And obviously, that strategy is very childish. Like that is the logical strategy that a 3 or a 4 year old would come up with from, wow, I was in a situation where this person was mad at me and it felt super unsafe and it was like way above my pay grade and I really couldn't handle it. I know from now on, I'll just try to make sure that no one's ever mad at me. Bingo. Now I've got this really cool protector part that's going to be like my little minion that's hanging out with me for the rest of my life. And your protector parts serve a great purpose, as well as I'm sure you can start to see, not so great of a purpose, right? Like they sometimes are sabotage us. They sometimes get in the way. We might wind up compromising ourselves and our desires and our needs in service of this protector part that's saying you have to make everyone else around you happy. It's not safe if someone's mad at you. And so, we can see how, oh, wait a second, like following that strategy, to its logical conclusion can often wind up actually not serving me and actually maybe causing me more trouble than being able to accept when someone's angry with me would, right? But it doesn't matter. Like those parts just exist. We can't get rid of them. They are intrinsic to who we are. And internal family system says the way to growth, the way to health isn't to get rid of that part, that people pleaser part, and just be like, oh my God, I'm not going to be a people pleaser anymore. Like enough. That's first of all, internal family systems would say, A, that's not the actual path to healthier living, but B, it's not possible. You can't get rid of these parts of you. So instead, the approach changes completely to how do I have a healthy relationship with that part? So those are protector parts. We all have protector parts. And if you start doing internal family systems work, you will realize that you have practically infinite parts, like parts that you didn't even realize. And sometimes there's parts that are protecting you from discovering another part. This is why internal family systems is called internal family systems. It's not actually about your relationship with your family. It's about saying you internally have a family of pieces and parts that all work together in a system to dictate how you navigate the world and how healthy you are or how unhealthy you are. And as when that family is healthy, we are happy and healthy. And when that family is not healthy, things are tough. That is why internal family systems are called what they're called. And that is why we learn to actually work with our parts the same as we would a grown-up working with children in your family. So those are protector parts. There's a second element to all of this, which are called exiles in IFS language. Exiles are that wounded bit that your protector part formed to protect. So in that moment when your parents were mad at you and it was way too much for you and it really scared you and it didn't feel safe and you never want to experience that again, it's almost like yourself sort of split into two little bits. One bit is the protector part. It's the part that's going to create the strategy to make it very unlikely or try to make it so that you never experience this situation again. That other bit is the part of you that was so wounded and couldn't experience um that situation, that piece that is like set aside, and it's kind of like just sequestered and protected now. And so the other thing that internal family systems would say is then the path to healing is to create healthy relationships with our protector parts, and then at a certain point become so healthy and such a trusted person with our protector parts that they're able to relax and step aside enough to let us go in and connect with that exile and work on helping that exile heal and repair. So I want you to imagine that if it were, this is all imagery I'm painting for you, but I want you to imagine that this exile is just like this little 3 or 4-year-old crying in the corner, just like, OMG, what just happened? My mom and dad screamed and yelled at me, and that was like super hard for me and painful, and I can't deal. That little quivering exiles in the corner. And I'll tell you a secret. Like I picture exiles, like any Harry Potter fans out there, I picture exiles as the little tiny shriveled up baby, naked, dying Voldemort that's like underneath the bench in the station after Harry gets killed in the last book. That's how I picture your exiles, just like this quivering, sad, wounded creature. The difference between Harry Potter and your exiles is that, well, first of all, your exile's not going to die. It's just going to be there waiting for you until you're ready and able to help it. And you actually can do something for it. So even though Dumbledore says you can't help it, in this scenario, you can help your exile. So we create this healthy, trusting, relaxed relationship with our protector part that then feels comfortable enough to sort of step aside. And now we can go in and almost like go back in time and be there while that moment occurs to this exile and help it basically not become an exile. So, um, so I'm explaining all of this stuff conceptually to you. One of the hurdles that I had to get over when I started doing IFS work and when my clients start doing IFS work, one of the hurdles that we all have to get over is how goofy it feels because I'm explaining this stuff conceptually, but real IFS work looks like actually talking to yourself. It looks like me going into that like exile wounded creature place and saying, hey, what's going on for you? And then that exile says to me, like, that was really scary. And I don't understand why my mom yelled at me. And it feels really unsafe. And also, she shouldn't have done that. And it wasn't okay that she did that and all of that stuff. And then me, adult self, me saying, you're right. It's not okay for a grown up to yell at a little kid. In fact, it's not okay for anyone to yell at anybody. And it makes perfect sense that that was scary to you. And you have every right to feel all the feelings that you feel right now. How can I support you? And then that exile saying, can you just like hold my hand? Because I think if I weren't alone, I could actually handle listening to my mom screaming at me and it wouldn't be so hurtful to me because I would know that like I was safe and there's another grown up here protecting me. And then me saying to the exile, yeah, I'm happy to do that here. I'm just going to sit right here next to you. And if you want to, you can crawl in my lap. I can give you a hug. You can cry. You could hide. You could do all the things that you need to do. And I'm right here for you. And and then oftentimes the next step is to actually just let that imagery continue and imagine like what is that exile doing now? Oh, it's crawling in my lap, it's holding my hand, or it's sitting on the other side of the room because it's still deciding if it trusts me or not, or it's watching me but not ready to move closer. Like this is the goofy part that we all have to get past so that we can actually do this work and it's genuine and it's real and it's not hokey and bizarre. So I've taken you through like all the way to sort of the inner sanctum of parts work. I'm going to walk you back out to protector parts because in the beginning, when we do IFS work, almost always we are really just working on relaxing our protector parts. We're not to the level of being able to go in and talk to our exiles yet. And that's totally fine. And you can feel tremendous and immediate transformation simply from talking to your exiles. So I want you to imagine your exiles like in this like inner sanctum and all around it are these like protector parts and all we're doing is talking to the guards. We're just talking to your protector parts, not even trying to get into the exile, just trying to make it so that they're not feeling so vigilant anymore. So what do I mean by that? In this example of people pleasing, there's going to be times in our life that for whatever reason these parts, this people pleaser part is way more activated than it is other times. Like maybe it's a situation you're like in a new job or something. Well, that's a time when maybe your people pleaser part is going to be on red alert. It's going to be like hyper vigilant. It's going to be like, okay, we're trying to make a good impression. We definitely want to get started on the right foot here. We just get hired for this position and we want to show the people who hired us that, they didn't make a mistake. So I am here to help you. I am here to make sure that you make a good impression by making sure that you put yourself on the back burner and focus entirely on the happiness of all these people in your new workplace. So your people pleaser part is like at the ready. And at a certain point, that's not going to work for you anymore. So, once again, a little bit more IFS lingo. When we are not aware of our parts, when we just are kind of almost like sleepwalking through life, which let's be honest is like half the time, if not most of the time for the majority of us. When we're sort of in that sleepwalking state of wandering through our lives, and our protector parts are the ones who are sort of guiding us and saying, you're at a new job, time to people please. What that is called in IFS lingo is us being blended with that part. Like, we don't realize that it's not our authentic self that is people pleasing. We believe that that's just our nature. That's who we are. That's our adult self, people pleasing everybody. And we're blended so much with that part that we don't have the ability to distinguish between our true, authentic adult selves and this tendency that we have that is optional, and we can choose to utilize it and we can choose not to utilize it. One of the things that we do with IFS, that first piece before we can even talk to our parts, is recognizing that they are parts. It's unblending from that part and being able to say, and people say this all the time, whether you're doing IFS work or not. You've probably said it to me if you're a client of mine, to your friends, to everybody. Oh, there's a part of me that feels this way, and there's a part of me that feels that way. IFS says, yeah, you're exactly right. You have two protector parts and they each think two different things. And now you're in this dilemma of trying to figure out which one of them is the one you're going to listen to. So being able to say, there's a part of me that just wants everyone around me to be happy. And I feel much more comfortable when it's that way. And so I can see right now that that part of me is in the driver's seat instead of my authentic adult self that's able to be a little bit more discerning being in the driver's seat. So we unblend from that part enough to just recognize that that's not actually our true highest self. And now we can actually have a dialogue with that part. We can say, hey, people pleaser, thank you so much for allowing me to notice you here and calling my attention to you. I didn't even realize you were here before, but now I do. And we can start to get curious about this people pleaser part and say, and this is where almost all self improvement work goes astray. What we want to do with this people pleaser part is to rationalize with it and basically tell it like, listen, I know you want everyone to be happy in the world, but that's not possible. And no matter what you do, you're always going to be upsetting somebody. And so I need you to shut the fuck up, basically, and let me go and live my life and stop trying to make everyone happy. You're dismissed. When we behave that way around whatever it is our unfinished business is, all we're doing is getting those parts to more firmly entrench and dig their heels in. So instead, what needs to happen is a totally different approach. And this is where I find it so useful to remember that this part is childish because it came from my childhood and it didn't grow beyond that moment when it came into existence. So I'm literally talking to a toddler right now. And how would I talk to a toddler if a toddler told me, you know, I'm really afraid there's a monster under my bed? I know, because I'm a parenting professional and I'm a parent myself, I know that telling that toddler, there's nothing under your bed, just shut up and go to sleep, is not going to help the situation. What really needs to happen is I need to sit there and say, tell me about it. Like, what are you afraid of? And when they tell me what they're afraid of, then I can say, wow, no wonder you're having a trouble going to sleep. You're afraid there's a monster under your bed. That would be really hard to relax. It makes perfect sense that you're not feeling very ready to go to bed right now. And then to say, why do you think that that's so scary to you? Or what do you think makes the idea of a monster scary? Or any number of kinds of connected, emotionally attuned questions that I can ask this toddler that's going to help the toddler relax. And at some point, I can actually say to this toddler, I totally get that right now you feel a little bit anxious about going to sleep. And also, it is time to go to sleep. What can I do to help you feel more relaxed about going to sleep? And that toddler might say, well, can you just like leave the light on? Or could you put a night light? Or could you like sit in here for a few minutes? Or could you look under my bed? Or can you give me a hug? Or could you leave my door open? Whatever, right? And we can say, totally, happy to, no problem. But we are the adult in the room. And that doesn't mean that this toddler is a piece of crap that is the worst thing on the planet and needs to get the fuck out the way that we try like to treat our protective behaviors. It's a it's a it's a it has humanity and it deserves love and respect and care. And when it receives those things, it is able to relax. It is able to do the things that it's afraid of. And it is able to let you be the boss or the leader in this situation. And that is exactly the dynamic that we need to have with our protector parts, not in a patronizing way, not in this like, you're a baby, so you're dumb way. Absolutely like, hey, people pleaser part, like, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for calling my attention to you so I can notice that you're here. Tell me what's going on for you right now. Well, we're in a new job. If anyone gets angry at us, maybe we might get fired. And oh my God, it just creates such a horrible pit in my stomach every time someone is unhappy with me, and it's just intolerable. And instead of saying, like, yeah, but you can't please everyone, so can you just like calm the fuck down? Instead, I can say to that part, like, I get it. It does stink when people are mad at us. And it makes perfect sense that you feel that way because it's so important to you to feel loved and accepted. And when someone's angry at you, it makes you feel maybe like that's not the case. I get it. I totally get it. And sometimes I do have to do things that I know people don't want me to do. How can I support you so that you're able to relax while I do this hard thing that you don't want me to do? And that is a very, very different dialogue that we have with our protector parts, with our ego. Remember, your protector parts are just your ego. you know, um, that is a very different dynamic that we can cultivate with our egos. And a very specific, like I said, you got to get past the goofy part because you're literally talking to yourself and having this like multiple personality moment. But as you do that, you can feel, and this is the part that I really want to impress on you today in this podcast. It's not all the nitty gritty or the logic or all the special names and terminology and all that stuff of IFS, because let's face it, if you do decide to work with me and we're doing IFS work together, you don't need to know all this stuff. It's my job to know this stuff. And it's your job to just be present and experience it. Right. So that's the beautiful trust fall of having a coach there with you who, it's like sometimes I have clients who are like, oh, are we running out of time? And I'm like, hey, it's my job to keep an eye on the clock. And you can you can fall into and surrender into this container, this 45 minutes that we have together, knowing that I'm going to make sure we end on time, that, this time is just for you and you do not need to keep track of or even organize your own thoughts, because even that is part of my job. It is a beautiful thing of having this person, this partner on your journey with you. So, what I really do want to impress upon you, if you, like I said, it's not necessary for you to remember any of these other things that we talked about today, but what I love when my clients, decide to be a little bit courageous and do some IFS work with me, which obviously always starts with, hey, how do you feel about, exploring this through the lens of internal family systems? And if my client is like, no, thanks, that feels really weird to me, I don't like it, then we don't do it, obviously. But when they do decide to do this work, you can, like, I'm doing all my sessions on Zoom. I can see the physical change in their bodies. Their shoulders relax, their muscles in their face soften. There's slowing in the breathing. The pace of their speech slows. Just facial expressions change. Like, I can see a huge energetic shift when that part feels validated, when that part feels seen and heard. Because just like a toddler, if your toddler is trying to tell you, like, there's a fire in the kitchen and tugging at your sleeve, and you're like just batting them away and telling them to shut up, at a certain point, they are going to continue. And they're not just going to be tugging at your sleeve, they're going to be yanking on your arm. And if you continue to ignore them, they're going to be screaming and stomping on your feet, because in their mind, they have got to get this memo out to you to save themselves and you. And that's exactly what your protector parts are going to do. Whereas if you stop what you're doing and turn and acknowledge the existence of this part and love it and validate it and allow it to feel seen and heard, so much of these protective habits that we are in, that we feel powerless to stop, soften. They don't go away entirely. They'll always be there. This part will always be there to help you, keep your eyes on, the prize, this value that you have of being included, for example, with the people pleasing, not being rejected, being loved and accepted. That's your goal as an adult. It's also your part's goal. It's just that it has a very childish strategy to get you there, right? So that part's never going to go away. But when you say, like, oh my gosh, I get it now. The reason why you're guiding me to do what everybody wants me to do is because you care so much about me being accepted and included in this group of people. I care about that too. I love you so much for helping me realize, like, what an important goal that is to me. And I have a different strategy that involves doing things that people like, but also sometimes doing things that are the right thing to do, even though people might not like them. And I would love for you to give me a chance to try that strategy. How can I help you feel relaxed and patient while I go off and do that thing? It is a totally different dynamic. It is so relaxing. Like, in fact, even listening to me talk about this, you might be feeling like, oh, especially if you identify as a people pleaser, right? Just know that you're not a people pleaser. You have a people pleasing part that you are enmeshed with, that you are blended with. And if you can create a healthy dialogue with that people pleasing part, you might feel so much less anxiety and stress about doing things people aren't going to like, and so much more ability to decide when to um, sort of take your people pleasers advice and when to say, yeah, I actually think a different tactic's going to work right now. The ultimate goal of IFS is choice and agency. It's not to get rid of your parts at all. It's to be in a healthy harmony with your parts. And you, as your adult self, are in the driver's seat and accessing and resourcing all of these amazing aspects of your ego that exist and are super useful. And I'm going to wrap up by giving you an example from my own life that is a perfect example of a part that I have that is like so this part is my like freaking PIC. Like, I love this part, and I don't access this part very often, but this part has been a lifesaver to me my entire life, and I call this part my fuck it part. Because I am an extremely determined person. When I set a goal, I am so committed to that goal that I have tied like my entire self-worth and integrity and worthiness on this planet to accomplishing this goal, or hitting these numbers, or whatever it is. And that obviously has served me very well in lots of different ways in my life, and it also, as you can imagine, causes me a lot of pain and misery at times. And when I get to a point where I'm basically coming up against the fact that, like, I'm not going to be able to hit a goal, or it's just not possible, or maybe I set an unrealistic goal, or I just have been banging my head against the wall on something for so long and I'm so miserable about it, my fuck it part raises his hand and is like, excuse me, but like, would fuck it be an option right now? When I was younger and not able to recognize that it's a part and not just this thing that's happening to me sometimes, that fuck it part, I would go way, way, way too far before I listened to my fuck it part. And then I didn't really like do it in this way where I was like, oh, I'm going to listen to my fuck it part. Instead, it was just like everything would end in this like explosive disaster where I probably would out loud and screaming at somebody say, fuck it. I give up. Screw it, and just sort of burn a bridge and walk away and sabotage something. And it would happen with like friendships, for example, or work pursuits or that kind of thing. But now I've done IFS work for several years now, and I recognize that fuck it energy, I'm able to hear it sooner, and I am in the driver's seat. So I get to decide, like, I hear you fuck it part, but first I'm going to try this one other thing. But really great that you're like throwing that your hat in the ring, because I probably wouldn't have thought of that otherwise. And sometimes I get to the place where it's like, you know what? Fuck it is the best option right now. I am so grateful that my fuck it part has, you know, shown up. So you can see how this fuck it part is like my savior in so many ways. And maybe other people have a fuck it part, but it's maybe a little bit out of control, or it's gotten a little bit too much, power in that person. But for me, the kind of person that I am, who's like super driven and responsible all the time, and making it from point A to point B, my fuck it part is really, really useful. It's a huge balancing part that I have, and I'm able to choose to kind of lean on or resource that skill that I have, that strategy that I have when it is appropriate for me. Just like people pleasing, right? Sometimes people pleasing is a really wise strategy, and you get to resource that strategy that you have created that's a part of your ego when it's appropriate, instead of it just running rampant and deciding, like, it stole the keys to mommy's car and is now driving all, slipshod all over the county. So these are the concepts that we talk about in IFS. There's so much more. I don't want to blow your brains with even more stuff, but the real thing that I love about these podcast episodes where we talk about some of these more um, conceptual strategies and modalities is for you to know that working with a good coach doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to have the same strategies. They definitely won't. But to be able to know that like your coach has a whole sort of buffet or grab bag of tools and skills that they can bring to bear. And it's not like hiring someone who just specializes in this one approach. When, at least for me, not every coach is the same, but for me, when you hire me, you're hiring like in a huge sort of pantry of ingredients that we get to bring to bear when it's appropriate and when you're ready for it and when it feels right to you, so that we can help you get where you want to go with your family, with your children, and all of those things. You can see how IFS is a huge piece of great parenting, or can be, because now I understand why I can look at when I lose my temper with my kids, or the things that are easy for me in parenting versus the things that are hard for me in parenting, and recognize there's something about these moments that is activating some sort of protective pattern that I have, some part in me is deciding that they need to be in charge here. And that's why I yelled. That's why I wasn't listening when my kid was talking to me. That's why I'm distracting myself with a podcast instead of being present with my kids. Like, all of the behaviors that I'm trying to modify as a parent are so much more possible for me to modify when I'm able to understand, oh, I see, and I need to now go and check with that stuff. You hear me talk all the time about how our own personal work is kind of the name of the game, that's what good parenting comes from. This is a really great example of what do we actually do so that we can do our personal work. I hope that's helpful for you today. I hope you enjoyed going in this like little deep dive into psychology and nerding out with me a little bit on IFS today. And if this kind of work is what you're looking for and you're ready for, hit me up, set up that free discovery call, talk to me about what's going on. And we're not probably going to do IFS work in our very first call, but we'll be able to set the stage for all of this personal growth work that you want to achieve. Have a great week, everybody, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/KaplanCall, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.